Hello, today I am very excited to show you around my Sinatra web application, EvAssist. As you can see, I've got my directory here and just kind of a quick rundown. Here's my database with my migrations, my application controller that my three model controllers are inheriting from. Here's my RESTful routes. These are our simple index, our shows, our edits, our deletes, so forth. Have some helper methods that I'm using. And then we have our view pages for each of our models, as you can see there. Okay, so now that you can see under the hood a little bit, we will jump in. I will show you the application as it runs. So first thing you'll notice is that there's some style. The front end framework is actually the Twitter Bootstrap. So if you look at the layout here, you'll notice that I'm using that Bootstrap here, and I have a nav bar set up. What we're seeing is this portion right here with the sign in and register links, and I'm yielding in the code from my none of those pages actually, right here. So it's welcoming you to the page. It's asking you to log in or sign up. And since we're going to pretend that we're a new user, we'll go ahead and register. Either of these links work, so we'll just go ahead and grab this one here. And we have an optional email field. We'll go ahead and leave that blank, and we'll create a user, and we'll name the user web user, and the password we'll just put test. Register an account. And you'll see that there's some seed data in here. So as a user, what you can do is you can view all the events, which is what we see here. You can look at other users' events. You can view their tasks that are associated with those events, if there are any. But what you can't do is edit them because you don't own it. You also can't create new tasks for the event because you don't own it. You'll get a little message here saying, sorry, you can't do that. So what you can do is you can view your events. A user can, so this is the username that we just created, events. It says you don't have any. So what we can do is we can use a link to navigate using our RESTful routes. We can create a new event. We go to a form here. We can name the event. We'll just call it event 1. We can set a date and time. We can do it as it's actually a string, so we can do either a date like this, or we can even just put a string like that. And we can write a description. This is the description for event 1, and we create our event. We get a flash message here telling us that the event has been successfully created, and then if we look, we'll see some details here, but we can also view this event's tasks. Now, since we just made it, obviously there isn't any tasks, so we will use this link to make new tasks. And we'll just go ahead and be unoriginal here, and we'll call this task 1. And here are the details of the first task. Now, you'll see there's a checkbox here that's asking if it's already done. One of the features that I was able to implement was adding a checkbox that saves the state of the checkbox to the database on whether or not the event has been completed. So we'll just pretend that we haven't done this task yet, and we'll just go ahead and make it. So here it is, successfully created our task. It's called task 1. Here's the details. Now we have the option to delete it if we want to. And it'll navigate us back to event 1 and tell us that we don't have any tasks. So let's go ahead and make that task again, now that we know that the delete function works. We'll go ahead and use this autofill in. This is blah, blah, blah. Still not done. We'll create the task. Okay, so let's go to edit this task. Maybe I want to make some changes here. We can change the name, but we can also say if we're done or not. So let's go ahead and say that we finished it. So now we see that it's been updated. The title's been updated. This is blah, blah, blah. And it says it's completed. So if we go back to this events task, you'll notice that it's got a link to the task itself if we want to see the details, but it also shows that it's been completed. Here it is again, all our details about the task. So let's go back to edit this task and let's see. Let's try to remove it and try to save it so that it doesn't have a name. Let's see what happens. Oh, edit was unsuccessful. Please try again. What I have behind the scenes is actually some input validation. And I have set it so that the user cannot save a task without a name. So you'll see here, where is it? Here we go. So this line right here is validating that our variable, which is stored in the hash params, the key task and the key name, isn't empty. If it's empty, then we're going to return this edit was unsuccessful message here. If it's not, then we will go ahead and update the title with the new title, which is this portion right here. And we're also going to check and see if that completed checkbox has been done, and then we're going to go ahead and save it, and we're going to go ahead and redirect, which is where we're seeing this right here. So it's been updated, it's done. We're going to go back to the events tasks. Okay, that's pretty neat. And then we're going to go to, let's navigate to this link. I want to look at the details of event 1. So I'm going to navigate through this link, just showing that the links all work. That's cool. Event 1, this is the description for event 1. Edit this event. Same kind of thing as editing the task. We have an event, and I have some event validation here, so I can't save it without it having a name. It should return unsuccessful. Edit was unsuccessful, please try again. But if I could say edit event 1, we'll do updated, and we'll just say that it's right now, and we'll edit. It should save it successfully, and it should give us a flash notification that it's been saved successfully. There it is, event 1 updated, it's happening right now. Description for event 1. Let's go ahead and view this event's tasks. There it is, it's completed. All events takes us back to the index page. We can view all the events from all the other photographers. It's pretty neat. I think this one has an example of some completed tasks. This event's tasks. Completed, completed, not completed, not completed, completed. And what's pretty cool is that I've actually also put in some user session validation. So what I don't want somebody to be able to do is if they go to all events and they just go to another user's events, you'll notice that there's no option to edit this event. That link doesn't exist. It's because the user doesn't, this logged in user doesn't own this link, and so it's not giving them the option. However, a clever user could, if they wanted to, just say, hey, I've noticed that they're using RESTful routes, and I want to go ahead and just edit this event, even though I don't own it. So I'm going to go ahead and add this URL and just try to navigate there manually. You'll notice that it's actually checking before it even routes to the edit form whether you're the logged in user. And it's going to give this message to any user that doesn't own that event. Sorry, you can't edit tasks you don't own. So you cannot brute force your way into the URL going through that way. Let's go ahead and log out. And I will demonstrate real quick also that there's some security here. So we go to sign in, and if I just try to sign in and I go blah, and I don't even have a password and I try to log in, it's going to say, sorry, that's a incorrect username or password, please try again. And so Now, if I try again, admin, or what did we say? Oof, I don't even remember. Web user, password test. We'll go log in. Okay, now I can see everything. If I log out and I try to go to events, same URL, I can't see anything. And it even says, please log in to view the content. It's remembering that, or rather it's checking to see if it should even route the user to the index page. And because they're not logged in and there's no session ID that's been saved or persisted, they're going to go ahead and return them back to this or redirect them back to this login page. One other thing here, there's some more user validation. You'll notice that this email is optional. I was able to leave that blank. But what about if I said I'm going to register a new user and I'm going to leave the password blank? Well, I went ahead and did two things. I made the form actually validate itself that there's a password, but I also made sure that our model wouldn't allow you to save it and it would return an error message if there was no password. So that's kind of a double protection. You'll notice here, say, please fill out this form. So that's the form actually doing the validation. So if somehow the user managed to bypass that, turn it off, it even says when I hover over here, I put a little pop-up that says passwords required to register. If somehow they were able to bypass that where it required a password, then I think even space will work as a password. If you are able to bypass that, you still won't be able to save it to the model because the model is going to require it. And I'll just show you here that I've done that. So if you go doodly-doodly-doo, sign up, post, user new params, if user save. And so why am I running if user save? Because if you go to your model and you go to user, you'll see here that a user validates a username, presence true, and it has a secure password. So it's not going to save without that password. And that secure password, which is also pretty neat, we're using bcrypt, and that is hashing our password for our users, and that's being stored in the password digest. So real quick, just show you that that is true. Here's our users, and here's the password digest in our users table. And quick show you what we've got going on for our events. Our events have names, descriptions, dates, and times, and a user ID because they belong to the user. And we have our name and a description, whether or not it's been completed. That's how we're persisting that checkbox, whether it's been completed or not. And we have an event ID because tasks belong to events and the events belong to users. And I went ahead and did something a little bit different. I also went ahead and associated tasks to users because I was thinking about integrating some functionality where a user can view all their tasks, even if they, without having to look at the events, just see all the different tasks that they'd actually associated. And I actually started mocking up the models for that as well. So you'll see a user has many events, has many tasks through events, but I didn't actually implement that in the web application yet. It's basically just there if I wanted to do that going forward. But you'll see here that a task belongs to an event. An event has a user through an event. Oh, sorry, looking at the tasks. A task has a user through an event. That's validating a name presence. That's kind of what I showed you earlier with the user validation, or rather the input validation. And an event, so this is kind of our intermediary. The event belongs to the user, but an event also has many tasks. It's also validating that there's a name. It won't save it if there isn't one. So that's a quick run through of EvAssist. I hope that you liked it. And we'll go ahead and log out. And we're back at our splash screen, or our home page, as it were.